some people know, we gave a talk yesterday just to introduce some of the things we're going to deal with in the play shop today. I know people who are here or who see this recorded won't have attended the talk, so we're going to do a little bit of an introduction again, and then we'll get into some exercises and so on. So let me introduce myself. My name is James Perreira. I'm a QC at the Bar in England and Wales. I'm also a visiting professor of law at King's College London, and I've authored some law textbooks and contributed to a book on coaching, because I'm also a systemic coach and NLP master practitioner. And together with Zita, we set up a company called, a business called the Legal Partnership, that specializes in coaching and professional development, particularly for lawyers.
Hi, and I'm Zita. I'm not a lawyer, but I've been working with lawyers on and off in various ways as a coach and a hypnotherapist for the last 15 years. And when I actually started my training, our first practice people were lawyers seeking to pass the Californian bar, which is notoriously difficult. So as a hypnotherapist, a NLP practitioner, and a systemic family constellations facilitator, I really support individuals in law and in entertainment, music, and various other professions to reach their full capacity in terms of living a fully expressed life through integrating all parts of themselves, so that they are functioning with all of themselves, not the parts that they've left behind along the way, or the distorted perceptions they've experienced about who they are rather than who they might be.
Now, what we're going to do today is a kind of a peek through a window of a larger workshop and workshops that we might hold. And one of the things we'd do if we were carrying a group through the day would be to do some group building, so to establish kind of ground rules for communication and create the safe space and so on. And we're not going to spend time doing that because we've only got an hour and a half today, but would anyone like to introduce themselves, to bring themselves present in the group? It's not compulsory or necessary, but if you'd like to, now would be the time to do that, just to say who you are and what brings you here.
When you make it not compulsory, nobody wants to do it.
Perhaps they're shy.
Hi, I'm Margaret.
Hi, Margaret.
Yeah, I'm one of the founders of Future Law Institute, and I'm particularly excited about this play shop, which is what I felt I could not miss it, because I'm inspired by the work that you two do. And I think it's such critical work for the profession, and even outside of the profession of law, you know, going forward. So excited to be here.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I do share the same excitement. Was here yesterday, hearing you guys speak, and it was a very interesting experience. Got me thinking about myself and kind of reflected upon what does it mean to be a lawyer and where do we go? Why do we choose the legal studies and then going into the legal practice as well? So it was wonderful hearing you. Otherwise, I'm Anya from Slovenia, also a co-founder from Future Law Institute, and happy to be here.
Hi.
Anybody else like to introduce themselves? Otherwise, we can
will
move on.
Okay, hi, I can do it just briefly. I'm Anna. I'm also from Slovenia, and I can't wait to hear you.
Hi, Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Anna, thank you.
Okay, fine. So let me I'm just going to do a slide share and give you a little introduction to what we're going to be looking at today. So that's us. And these are the takeaways, and this reflects some of the stuff we talked about yesterday. So there are three things really. The third one comes from the first two. So the first one is about time and just understanding time. We talked yesterday about time being past, present, and future, kind of stacked on top of each other. And I guess a question to hold might be, where did I come from and where will I choose to go? And then a second thing we're going to look at today is understanding relationships. And again, we touched upon that yesterday. We'll do some more on that today. And again, another question to hold is, what do my relationships need and how can I bring that to them? And so with this learning, we're really focused on trying to get to solutions in both of these topics. It's about trying to get to solutions. That's something that's very important in the work that we do. But I think first you're going to do just a grounding meditation.
Yeah. So we're going to do a grounding because what we know from understanding neuroscience is that we are better at reaching, it's easier for us to reach solutions when we are grounded and present. More often than not, when we're addressing a problem, we go into a heightened or a frightened state or a flight or fright. So given that we're looking at solutions, let's start from the place where solutions are found. So I'd like you all to just place your feet flat on the floor. And if you like, just half close your eyes. So it doesn't have to be like a sleep close, but what we call a demi-close, a meditative focus state. And just allow yourself to take a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, so that you allow yourself to come into presence. And just notice yourself noticing. Notice your body and how it feels. You might even notice the sensation of the chair touching your bottom and your feet touching the ground and connecting you to the ground so that you really are grounded and in presence. And just take another deep breath in and have awareness of your thoughts as they keep passing through your mind. Our thoughts are like a constant stream, and we can choose the ones which have most value to us to stop them, hold them, look at them, explore them, notice them, and then release them and let them continue on their way. And then just allow your awareness to drop down into your body. Perhaps you notice your throat or your chest. Is there any tightness? Just notice with presence. I am here now, and I am present. And I am present with this experience that I am having now. And take another deep breath. And just let go of any release, any stress or anxiety you might be having. And when you're ready, just open your eyes. So passive grounding is bringing us into presence. And one of the things that we do as humans is we tell stories. We constantly tell stories. We tell the stories about our life, about what we're going to do tomorrow, the story of our meal, the story of the day we had. And the most important story that informs all of us, and which is unique and distinct to each of us, is that we were born to a certain family, we were born to a certain country, we were born to a certain country that had certain values and certain cultures and beliefs as part of that, and we were also born into a certain body. And that particular part of our story, our fate in a way, is beyond our control. We have no part in how that story comes to be. We arrive, and it is yet the most important part of the story of who we are. It informs the decisions we make. It informs even some of the beliefs that we hold. And some of those beliefs are that this is the only truth. But we know that from looking around the world, there are millions upon millions of different truths. And we have access to all of those truths, which we can change by adjusting our story. So I know we looked yesterday a little bit about the past being the story that we're born into, how it informs our present, and how it informs the future and the future decisions that we make, what skills we choose to keep adding to our toolkit in life that allow us to move more smoothly through life in a way that is in peace and harmony with who we are, rather than who we have been told we are, or who we say or tell ourselves and how we describe ourselves in our stories. So this particular exercise that we're moving into is understanding the stories that we are carrying from the past, the stories that we tell in the present, and the stories that we bring into the future. And as we understand stories and how we tell them, we also start to have a sense of how, when we describe a problem, the reason why we are struggling to find a solution is actually to do with the way we are describing the problem. If we describe the problem correctly, we have the solution. And there is no story to tell about a problem. So if we can understand that our photograph is coming from a particular angle, if we shift the angle of the photograph, we get a new view. And that's what systemic perspective is really about. We understand our problems from a different perspective in chronology, where past, present, and future are all stacked on top of each other. And in this view, we get to frame it in a different way. Our perceptions shift, and as our perceptions shift, we have new ideas that come to us that allow us to find the solutions to our problem. So we're going to start with an exercise. You just need a notepad, and we're going to start with some questions. The first question: growing up, what were you told about who you are? We're all told things about who we are, so I just want you to quickly jot down, don't overthink it, go with what comes up about who you were told you are. The second question is, what part does this play in how you are today? Again, just be free and loose and relaxed with it. And how was this helpful and how was it unhelpful? So we're going to give you 5 minutes to just make some notes and view yourselves through the lens of the past. Hi, welcome back. So I saw the note from Margaret to say this is heavy. I hope you didn't all have that experience. I mean, sometimes these questions, light as they are, can trigger parts of ourselves or not. So I wonder if anybody would like to share what came up for them in that exercise.
I can share something.
Thank you.
Okay. It's just that there's somebody else in the room as well. So if you had some extra noise, hopefully you can still follow me. But so I made a list of, some specific things that I remember from my childhood being shared by my parents or by people around our family. And then also teachers in school. And so I have a list, but there was one that sort of became more clear for me. And that was that I had this teacher that I really loved. And then my parents came back from this elderly meeting, and this teacher told them that I was lazy. So that really kind of triggered me a lot because I liked this teacher, right? And so I was kind of, I don't know, I was not happy at all, and I felt kind of misread by somebody I dearly attended his lesson. So, but what I found through this experience, because I felt I didn't agree with that, was that my way of learning, or the way that I love to learn, is by experience. So actually it gave me a real good insight, because I thought about, well, in what subjects am I lazy, or why would people think? And then this sort of became more clear to me. So yeah, that was something that I found in this exercise.
Thank you for sharing.
I can share something.
Please.
So I grew up very much with this kind of, interestingly, I was told I was lazy too. And that's one thing I'm not, it's lazy, but you kind of, you know, that messaging can run deep, and I know very clearly how it's affected me in the present, which is that I, for a long time, you know, took pride in hard work for its own sake, and in the things that needed to be associated with work for it to be hard. In other words, pain, suffering, exhaustion, display, all of that. And I think also part of that was also an example I'd seen from, or I believed I'd seen from my parents, particularly my mother, kind of strong Irish woman, doesn't stop at anything. And yeah, so that was helpful in one way, because it gives you that energy and a sense that you're right to be doing what you're doing in a certain way. Unhelpful in the sense that it caused me all sorts of problems with exhaustion and burnout and overwork and stress. But it had a comfort with it because it's what I'd been told about work when I was growing up. You know, that's what I knew. That's what was right for me, is the messaging that I got. Yeah.
Well, I've got one as well. Okay.
I think I actually still do that.
Well, I was told I was stubborn. And it was a huge relief for me when several years later I discovered the word persistent. And I transmuted stubborn into persistent. I don't like to give up. I like to keep going.
Anyone else want to share any thoughts or observations? I guess one of the things we'd say is that it's a common misconception that, you know, the work realm is here and the private realm is here. And there's a whole branch of coaching. In fact, most coaching will focus on the present and the future, and it's almost taboo to look into the past. But actually, if you keep that curtain drawn, there's a lot that you miss about why we are as we are now, and also about what the possibilities are for the future, the reframe, for example, there.
Yeah. And also we have a tendency culturally to say, well, you know, I'm going to really harness and run with my strengths, but my weaknesses are these things that must be tidied away and put into drawers. And what we often discover when people come to coaching or workshops like this is that their weaknesses are actually their strengths, and it may be their strengths that are the things that are holding them back or restricting them in some particular kind of way. So it's quite useful just to take this moment to check in with ourselves and go, why am I doing this? Where is this story coming from? And how can I turn the coin over and use it in a productive way going forward? So harnessing what we've been told as a negative, not turning it necessarily to the complete other extreme, but finding a balance that is true to us. And that takes us back to the grounding exercise that we did at the beginning, which is noticing what happens in ourselves when we use these kinds of language or when we tell these stories. If you imagine that your body is actually your unconscious mind. So what you are thinking is one thing, but your body will trigger sensations and feelings that inform you whether something is good or is right. Stress, although it has value, can also be an indication from your body saying, this situation needs to change, it's not supporting me right now. And if we don't take the time, even just for a few moments, to check in, is this story still true? Am I still lazy? Am I still stubborn? If we don't check into how does it feel to own a certain truth about ourselves, we often miss bits that are incredibly valuable. And that's what the second question was about you coming into presence with understanding something that someone else has observed or perhaps projected onto you, understanding how it happens, how we do it to others, and how we disown parts of ourselves because of it. So the last question, and I think we can just do this here in presence and take notes, we won't block you out, But the question is, if you remove judgment of yourself and all obstacles to your success, what would you do differently tomorrow? And just make notes. And one of the wonderful things one of my teachers taught me is, as you're in the process of notes, if someone starts to interrupt your thought pattern, it starts to change your thought pattern, which is why I'm talking to you now and interrupting your thought pattern. I don't want you to stay with the same old, because you've been doing that for a long time. So we're going to change it up. Still holding the same question. I want you to do it, answer from a place of presence. So stop, put your feet flat on the ground. Close your eyes, take a breath, come into presence with your body. Let the mind drop down into the body. Feel what's happening in your body. And if you're lucky, which I think most of you are because you're here, the truth will just float up. That is the answer to that question. Allow it, give it space. That's why we're here. What is your future skill, unhindered, unbridled? Got it? Jot it down. If you need more time, you can continue with this exercise after the workshop. It is an essential and valuable skill that we lose touch with. We knew how to do it when we were 3 years old. So with that first part of the workshop, exploring the stories we tell, feeling into, rather than thinking into, how we can change our stories in a short space of time, I'm going to hand you over to James, who's going to talk to you about relationships.
Thanks. Just a few observations. If we were doing this in a group that we were carrying through, we might choose to do it in pairs, for example. So there'd be somebody questioning and somebody answering, and it'd be more of a conversation. And we find, as you'll all know from your own experience, when you start to talk out loud, you learn something from the process of talking out loud and hearing yourself. And then also the other person learns something, because they learn something from listening, not only about the person they're talking to, but there are always things that come up and resonate, and we think, oh yeah, I think like that sometimes, or I do that sometimes. So there are different ways that these exercises can be done. We've adapted that just for the way that we're here together today. So the other thing we talked about in our talk yesterday was relationship, and so we're going to move on to something about relationship now, and I'm going to do a screen share. And we're going to start with a little game. It's a game of relationship mathematics. And you can see there are some very, 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 very simple equations here. And the question for each one is, if you imagine that each number there is a person. So where you've got 1, that's 1 person. Where you've got 1 + 1, that's 2 people. And the question simply is, how many entities do we have here? So if we've got 1 + 1, you can all join in, by the way, because I know well, I say I know the answers. I don't know all of the answers, as we'll find out. But I know some of the answers. So if we've got 1 + 1, the answer is, you can hold a finger up, or you can say.
Is the question how many people
How many
are left, or what's the question?
How many entities are there? Which probably might give you a clue.
Yeah. Could it be 3? Could it be 3?
It could be 3.
Yeah.
It is 3. You've got me, and if you like, my relationship system that comes with me. You've got the second person, and then as soon as they interact, you've got a third entity. You've got the relationship, and this idea, then, it's really, when we talk about systems and systemic thinking, systems arise when people get together. And the most basic system is a couple of whatever sort. It could be 2 partners in a business, could be you and your romantic partner, whatever, whoever. But that's the most basic system. 1 and 1 is 3. Of course, coming with each one, there's a whole load of other stuff. But seen at most simply, 1 and 1 is 3. Now, if we carry that through, 1 + 1 + 1 is what? The people are busy scribbling away now because it gets a bit more complicated. 1 + 1 + 1 is?
At least 6, because you've got all their individual relationships, and then you've got the pair relationship, and yeah, absolutely.
I think it's 7, but I have to count these things again.
Yeah.
You've got the ones, you've got the pairs, and then you've got the 3.
Yeah.
And you can see straight away why systems can be complicated, because with just 3 people, you've got each of them individually, and then you've got 4 others, which I think are the 3 and the different pairs. And if I've got that wrong, forgive me, but I think that's right. And when we think of systems within systems, we often in coaching call them nested systems. That's to say, a bit like those kind of Russian dolls. You know, you get the smaller things stacked inside, and then you've got the big system. And you can just pause now and think about, you know, a team that one might lead at work, or your family, or, you know, your football club, or your sports club, or your bridge club, or whatever society you might belong to, your mates that you go out with. And how the dynamics change, and you suddenly realize, well, yeah, if you take 1 out of that, so 1 of the 3 is missing, that shifts the dynamic, and so on. Now, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1, yeah. That somebody sighed there. I think it's about 16, but it might be more. Because I kind of lose track at this point. And the reason for that is obviously you've got the 1s, you've got the 2s, you've got the 3s, and then you've got the 4. And I'm pretty sure it comes up to something like that. And I mean, just to imagine that the number of relationships and elements coming into a relationship is that numerous from so few people, and multiply that out to a big organization, see what happens. And you'll know, I mean, I've got 3 kids, and I know that when the 3 of them are together, that's dynamic to when only 2 of them are together. And then it depends which 2 are together. And sometimes the 2 turn on the 1, or the 1's not there, so the 2 are doing, and that's the beauty and the complexity of relationships. And I just want to know, I'm going to go on to another slide, and it's
Can I just add another thing to that, which is from the systemic perspective, when a client walks into the room, they're bringing in their mother and their father, their grandparents and their siblings are all standing beside them, not visible, but through the words they say, the beliefs they hold. So that just adds another layer of complexity to every interaction we have. Just when you get married, whoo, we all know.
And the last exercise we did when we asked those questions, of course, that's raising an awareness about your relationship system growing up and how it's affecting you now. So even when we address it on the individual level, others and other things are coming in. And the model that I like to show is this. And it's the relationship as being a third entity, as being a separate thing. And I'd just like you to pause and look at that. I mean, for the visuals, you'll understand it straight away, but it's worth just pausing and looking at it. And, you know, when we stand in relationship, and so we're here talking about law. So for me, all lawyering is about relationship, right? I mean, in transactional lawyering, law, obviously it's about relationship. You've got a relationship with your client, your team, the person on the other side you're dealing with, whatever it might be. There's relationship in a more abstract way. There's relationship with your work. You know, when that piece of work arrives on your email or the files are there on your shelf, what is your relationship with that? And then in litigation, there's a whole other relationship dynamic, and it's a different energy because it's about the adversarial and conflict, but it's still relationship. When I stand in court, one of the things I like to keep in mind is like having windows open, like we have here on this call. We've got different windows open. I can see all of you, and in a way, I'm kind of in relationship with each of you. We're in relationship together. When I stand in court, I'm in relationship with the judge. I'm in relationship with the witness. I'm in relationship with my opponent. I'm in relationship with my client. I'm in relationship with my opponent's client. I will sometimes say things and do things which have nothing to do really with anything, with anyone else, apart from a message I want to send to his client because I want to disrupt something over there. And so keeping open these screens of relationship, it can be challenging and demanding, but it's a really helpful way of looking at things. And what it does is it helps us to move beyond the question of I and the question of you to the question of it or the relationship. In other words, it moves beyond what do I need, what do I want, or what do you need, what do you want, to what does our relationship need? And that can open up completely different perspectives. And again, for me and for clients that we have, particularly ones that are keen to understand not only, I guess, well-being is a classic example of this. You know, we often think about, you know, the legal system is like this, it drives us to do this. You know, we have to work hard or whatever. Separating out what's the me in that? What part am I playing in that? What part is someone else playing in that? And then asking, what do we actually need to create? How can we be purposeful and conscious what we need to create to make things work? This model can help that, but also in adversarial circumstances, in conflict circumstances. You know, if one thinks of the relationship as being like a big bowl on the stove and you're mixing some ingredients, you know, what do I put into the pot and how do I stir it around in order to further, if you want to be cynical about it, but loyally about it, in order to further my client's needs. You know, what do I create in the space between me and the judge, or me and the opponent, or me and my colleague across the table I'm negotiating with to further my client's needs? What ingredients do we pour in? So this, for me, is a powerful model and worth reflecting on. Does anyone have any observations, thoughts, insights they'd like to share?
Well, I have one. My observation is also around our awareness that what we put in, what do we also hope to get out? Or what would we like to get out? And is what we hope or would like to get out equal in value or of what we've put in? Is it the same value? Is it different? How does it support us?
In other words, giving and receiving?
Yeah, the mutual exchange of giving and receiving.
Any thoughts? Anyone? Anyone like to say anything? Otherwise, there's an exercise around this that we'll move on to.
Well, I did, something popped up for me while Zita was talking about the giving and receiving and the value. Should it be the same value? And what is value? You know?
Sorry, so to be clear, value is mutual exchange. If, for example, I take you out for dinner, I do something nice for you, and I keep doing that, there's an imbalance occurs in the relationship unless I'm willing to receive something in return. If I put too much in and I feel like I'm putting too much in, you are, the depth balance is not equal. And usually the person who puts in more or too much or only puts in but doesn't take back destroys the relationship. So value is not by equality as such, but how we value the equality of it. Somebody may say, well, I'll put a lovely sandwich into this. And the other person might say, well, I'll give back a spanner or take a spanner. And that feels equal to them. So it's not a measurable value, it's a felt experience value.
And how would we address that in a relationship where, yeah, how does one address that imbalance?
We feel it.
Mm.
It's quite visible when it's out of balance.
Right, and how do we address it after we feel it?
Oh, well, we acknowledge it and we put it into the relationship. This is what I feel when this happens. And that allows the others who are involved in the relationship to respond.
There's another piece here about perspective, which this model helps with, and Margaret, it kind of has a relationship with your question. So I was once in a relationship with somebody for a long time, and as the relationship was breaking down, you know, we were arguing with each other, and this person, I was saying, you know, well, really, what I want is this, you know, kindness and softness and affection and physical contact and everything else. And the answer came back, yeah, but look, I do the laundry and I fold your clothes and I put them away for you.
That's quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I didn't see. You know, if you stay in the position of I, we tend to think the way I give in a relationship is also the way I need to receive. The way I show love in a relationship is the way I need to be shown love. And if we do that, we are blind to the fact that somebody else may show their love in a different way. And unless we raise our awareness of that, in other words, unless we move beyond the I, and we start thinking, what's being put into the relationship here and what value does it have? We can't see that. So I completely missed that by this person doing all the things that she was doing, she was showing her love to me and I couldn't see it. But the if we could step into the space of relationship and embrace that, then we could really value what we created. But you know, that takes work and opening up and perspective and so on. And okay, we're talking about personal relationships here because they have an immediate power and relevance for us, but it works the same in a team or at work with your colleagues or whoever it might be with.
Yes, principally because who we are, we don't get the luxury, even though we would like to think we can, leave ourselves at the door when we go to work. We're still taking in our arms, our legs, our bodies, our thoughts and our feelings and all that comes with that. And as a result, we tend to invariably and naturally replicate the patterns of relating that we are already familiar from the moment we are born.
So I'm sorry I'm late, and I've been to an interview for a teacher, as a teacher. And I was thinking, as one does in these times, how very relevant that is to my teaching and how I run. So I run seminar groups, I run tutorial groups. And so I came in on the last bit of your maths, and thought how interesting that is about how a group works. But I also wanted to share, I like it. I mean, it is about love. It is about the love we give, the love we give back. But it also strangely applies in work terms too. So me and my partner have an allotment and we work them together. So if I work on my own, very little gets done. But if we work together, lots more gets done. So it's not just that math that you showed about the different combinations of people and how they build a relationship, which is a different thing, which I agree with. But actually, the thing you make is also different. There's a lot of power and energy. And the reason I went to the interview is because the people I want to work with, they're people that I really like. I like the students, and I really like my colleagues. Thank you.
Well, that's a great observation, and thank you for bringing that, because relationships are generative, aren't they? They bring, you create something different from the 1+1, which you couldn't do with the two individuals. And as you gave an example there, there's a power and an energy of coming together that can't be harnessed by each of the people on their own.
Yeah. And in that mutual exchange, the relationship growing is, somebody does an act of kindness for you, and you do another act of kindness and just a little bit more. And that's how we grow kindness. Similarly, by the way we are designed, if somebody does something not so nice, we are almost bound by loyalty to do something not so nice back, but a little less, so that it diminishes in the reverse.
Yes, if we do more back, then it escalates.
It escalates.
If we do less back, then there's a chance.
If one shouts and one speaks a little quieter, then you reduce the conflict of noise, or the sound of conflict, for example. Anybody else want to share anything?
Okay, so we're going to move on to an exercise. Before I get the slide up, if we were doing this and we had more time, or if we were doing it in a group face-to-face, we would do it spatially. In other words, so it's an exercise about looking at the different positions in the three-way dynamic. In other words, you would stand in the place of you and do the exercise. The exercise is going to come up in a second, but I'm just explaining this. You would then move and stand in the place of the other. You would then move and stand in between those two in the place of relationship, and then you would move back. And one of the things we do a lot of is spatial mapping and spatial exercises, because anchoring space and identifying space and moving through space engages our bodies and our emotions and enables us to see things in ways, if we kind of stay put with our heads down, we don't. So one of the things I invite you to do, I mean, you could turn your camera off, not yet, but when you do the exercise, is maybe stand up, and when you do the exercise, just move through the positions. Okay. Having said that, I appreciate I need to explain to you what the exercise is. So here it comes. So So this is about what we call unfolding relationship, seeing what's there, really, and it builds on that model. So this is how it works. So choose something that matters to you, that has an issue. Don't choose something super hot, because that can be quite upsetting and challenging. And then take your position in that relationship. So if you go think of that model in your mind, think of yourself standing or sitting facing that other person, and take that position and ask yourself, what do I feel? What do I need? What else do I notice? Because you might notice, your shoulders stiffening or your stomach knotting or whatever it might be. Then shake that off. So you've got some information about your position. Then take the other person's position. So you might want to swing your chair so you're facing back to where you were, or you might want to stand up and move so you're facing back. You might want to imagine it. And be them. In other words, step in their shoes and repeat the questions, but speaking as them. So not saying, I think they would say this, or I think they are this, but I, speaking from the I, as though you were them. So if it was your brother, you speak I, but as your brother. And ask the same questions. What do I feel? What do I need? What do I notice? So then you've taken the two positions in that model we looked at. Then take the position of the relationship, which is a third position. So you might want to kind of spatially imagine yourself standing between the two, between the you and the other. And take the position of the relationship, and speaking as the relationship, ask yourself, what does it feel like to see them? What do you know that they might not? And what do you need from them? In other words, what do you, the relationship, need them from them? And then when you've done that, shake that off and then move back to your original position. So you're back in your I. What have you learned? What can you do differently? I'm just going to put the view on so I can see you. So all you're really doing, you're traveling a lot through that triangle. You've got your you here, you've got the other here, you've got the relationship at the top, and you're traveling from you to the other, to the relationship, and then finally back in your own space again, and you're asking, what have I learned and what can you do differently? So this is an exercise that's just intended to raise awareness, bring, if you like, empathy of being in the other person's place, and then bring you into the third place of the relationship and really start to think about and feel what the relationship is like beyond the you and the I. What's the relationship like? And then to take that learning back into your own place. I'm just going to do stop share so I can come back and see you all. I'll put the share back on when you do the exercise, but I want to ask if you've got any questions and if there's anything I can explain differently that will help you. Does everyone understand?
I just want to add one thing that might help you from the first exercise that we used of noticing. Just notice what happens in your body. Notice what you feel. Notice if it feels good or not so good, or neutral still. Okay.
Okay, so we say 5.
So I think it's 3 minutes, a minute in each position.
Okay, we're going to try doing a minute in each position. If we were doing it with more time, we'd spend more time on it, but just to get an insight. Okay, so I'm going to do the screen share and then I'll set the time running. All right, so that gives you 4 minutes, I think. Your position, the other position, the relationship position, and back into your position again.
Welcome back.
Let's start.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So for me, it really helped. This structure really helped to identify what belongs where. And also, so let me make it concrete. So I'm working very hard lately. Still fighting the laziness. No. So my boyfriend planned a couple of days off in the agenda for us after this summit. So I thought, well, let's take my own relationship and do the exercise and see. And the insight that I got was, I am aware of what I need. I am aware of what my boyfriend needs, but what our relationship needs is something completely different. I'm really happy to get the insight that what our relationship needs is equal experiences. So where you are equal, enjoying the presence of each other. So instead of, we have a young family. So instead of we're both giving each other a lot, like you know, if you need some time off, I'm going to make sure that that can happen. And, you know, so we're taking care quite hard of each other. We're doing the best in there, but the relationship needs equal experiences where we are equal instead of one giving or the other one giving. So that was my insight. It was really in the circle of relation. What does the relationship needs?
That's lovely. Thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you for sharing.
Anyone else?
I can go if no one else is going.
Please, Margaret.
Okay, so I had a hot relationship to put there in my marriage, but then I said, no, that's too hot. So I decided, let me try this with someone that I care about, who's part of my team. So we have this huge volunteer, largely, primarily volunteer team who's helped to put this together. And I said, let me try it with this person. It's a guy. And I stood in the position as myself, and I just felt wobbly and unstable. And when I felt into that, I was like feeling unsupported, lack of trust, judgment, all this stuff. Then I stepped into his shoes, you know, and I felt, you know, like he was feeling pushed aside, like he wanted to step further away from me. So I stood here and he was there, and the body wanted to move away. And so I did what the body wanted to do. And then I felt his body, you know, wanted me directly in front of him like that, right? To move me there. And then I said, this is interesting. Okay. I went and I stood in the position of the relationship, and I faced the two of us. Yeah. And when I faced the two of us, I felt the strong need for a lateral connection, like that there was no lateral connection, and that both parties were like pushing forward. There was a strong push forward, right? And the relationship felt this, you know, like so it was like a force coming toward the relationship and nothing going this way, you know. And yeah, I got a deep, I think I got a really great insight from that. So I'm really grateful for this exercise. I think we're both very passionate and you know, have bold and strong visions, and we are focused there. And so we maintain relationship for the focus, for the vision. But what the relationship needs is that coming together, that connection, that human connection between us. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. Anybody else?
Hello, everyone. If I can just say something.
Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Can you hear me over there?
Yes, we can
Okay,
hear you.
good. I'm unable to share my video due to my poor internet. Anytime I switch on my video, my internet will go off. So if you can hear me, just let me speak up. Now, my experience is this. There are a lot of things we want in a relationship. A wants something from the relationship, and B also wants something from the relationship. And in the midst of all this, we have our own goals, we have our own mission. But sometimes what I discover is that we are always second guessing B, like A second guessing A and A second guessing B. Sometimes communication is so vital. You ask the other party, what do you really want? not really second guessing what that person wants, because it is this second guessing that leads to frustration in every relationship. Because I feel that, oh, you know what I want, you have to work towards it. The other guy is saying, oh, you know what I want, you have to work towards it. If you don't communicate, it leads to frustration. Then another thing I have come to discover is that relationships should come with peace of mind and satisfaction. If you're in any relationship, you don't have peace of mind, you don't have satisfaction, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So the value I see in every relationship is the relationship giving me peace of mind? Am I satisfied with the relationship? Once it's not giving me peace of mind, it's causing a whole lot of confusion in my head, I am always reluctant to go on with that kind of relationship. So that is what I see. So the more we communicate, the more you know what the other person wants by asking the right questions, because sometimes we really don't ask the right questions. And if we don't ask the right questions, we're not going to get the right answers. So the more you ask the other person the right question to elicit the right answers, then you will know that, oh, I have been so wrong in second guessing this person, and my second guessing is not right. This is what the person wants in the relationship. So that is actually what I've come to discover from this exercise. Thank you so much.
Nicely put.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. It reminds me actually of a story a few years ago where I was coaching a couple and they came in for couples therapy. And it was about the high amount of conflict in the relationship and how they were judging it. And finally, I looked at them both and I said, you know what, you are both brilliant at conflict. You do it really well. And suddenly there was peace. That was the dynamic of their relationship. And once they could acknowledge that it was good and it worked for them, it was okay to continue. So it's wonderful in these conversations, we discover there's so many ways of being and so many different ways that support relationships. As Obara Solomon said, we find what supports us and what feels right for both. Yeah. And that brings a peace of mind, even if the peace of mind looks to others like a third world war.
There's a nice point off the back of what you said, Obara, which is really shows the value of asking what the relationship needs. So let's take your example of second guessing. So if I feel someone is second guessing me, I might think, well, I need people to be to ask me questions, or I need to be understood, and we speak from the I, right? And the other person may say the same thing. If we ask, what does the relationship need? The relationship may need trust or non-judgment. And you put those into your cooking pot and you stir them round and you let them settle in. And then the system is created where second guessing doesn't need to happen or won't happen so much, because people are able to say what they need or what they think and what they feel. There's this common phrase, isn't there, in systemic work, moving from the ego system to the ecosystem and so on. And one of the ways that I certainly understand that is that really the ecosystem is the relationship. It's the thing that's created. It's what we all live in. And it's about creating something that's ecologically supportive of the people and how they interact. Anything else? Okay, we have one little follow-up for that. So if we were doing this with more time, the next step would really be about how to capture the thing that the relationship needs. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Julia.
It's really nice to have you here and to see you, and thanks for your participation. It's been really helpful. Thank you. You're muted if you want to say something.
Just say, yeah, thank you, and thank you for letting me in, and that was very moving, and I've learned a lot even in a little time, but it's a little bit overwhelming for me as well. So I'll come back to that. Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay, thank you.
So what we'd often then look at is, okay, if the relationship needs this, how do we get it? It's all very well saying, oh, the relationship needs trust, but if we're not, where do we get that from then? and there are various ways of exploring that, and we can't go into all of that right now. But we've just got a very short exercise, a couple of questions to really reflect on, which start the kind of steps towards that. So I'm going to go back to the screen share, and it's two simple questions. So just choose one of the things that your relationship that you worked on needs, and choose that. So let's just imagine it was trust, and ask yourself these two questions. What do you find challenging about that? Because often if the relationship needs it and it doesn't have it, it's sometimes because that's a challenge for the people in it. And where can you find it? And I'm not going to say anything about where you can find it, just ask you to reflect on that for a minute or two, and we can discuss that when we get the feedback. So because time is marching on, I'm just going to give you a minute to reflect on that and jot some thoughts down, and then we'll bring the group back together. Thank you. Anyone like to share anything from that?
Yeah, I'm Asif from Pakistan. From my point of view, relationship should be from both sides, and it should be based on mutual understanding, and it should be based on humanity based. And we are living in a relativity world where we believe in relativity. And as for my culture, what we have here in Pakistan, the Pashtun culture, when anyone wants you, you should accept and endorse them. If someone don't want you, don't accept and don't endorse him. This is our cultural popularity we have here. But in the world, we should build our relationship based on the humanity interest, where everything is relatively connected with us, and everything is human or other living things on the net. We have should be keeping a relationship which we should understand, each other. I think if we give space and response, the relationship will be built automatically positive, most having good result points and inputs regarding your presentations.
Mohammed, thank you. Some of that was a bit didn't come through so well because of the internet connection, but one of the great pieces of learning you brought there was about how our cultural perspectives really influence the way we approach relationships. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for that.
That's really
If I may, can you guys hear me? If I may.
Yes, you can.
sure.
Okay. So choosing one thing that the relationship needs, I can wrap two things into one by saying trust and tolerance. So I wrap them into one thing, trust and tolerance. And that is the one thing I feel that the relationship needs. Then what do I find challenging about that? Now, what I find challenging about that is this concept of, if you love me, you will trust me. That is what I find so challenging. For me, if I trust you, I will love you. And that trust is earned. You really have to earn the trust. That is what I feel about trust.
I think, Abara, you may still be speaking, but we can't hear you. So I'm just going to, I'm mindful of the time, so I'm just going to carry on. One thing we often find is that, you know, people. Abara, because the microphone's not.
What I see about it is,
yeah, I think he may have gone. So what I was going to say, we've got about 5 minutes left now, so I just want to wrap up this, and then Zita's going to close the session. What people often find is that there'll be relationships that they're in, other relationships, where they do display the characteristics that they need to bring to the relationship that they're working on. And so often we can resource ourselves in relationships by drawing upon our experience of other relationships. Often people will look at others, might be, you know, their parents or work colleagues or whatever, and see the way they are in relationships and kind of model their behavior. It may be challenging, but if you can look at others,
sorry, you guys lost me there. I have a
and model their behavior, that can help. I think we need to close. We need to draw to an end now, don't we? So
we do need to.
Abaro, I don't know if you can hear us, but we can't hear you, and we're aware we've only got a few minutes left now. So we're going to draw to a close. If you want to put some observations in the chat box, then please do, and then we can pick them up there. Okay.
Okay. So we've just got a few minutes. We're going to do a little quick visual guided meditation because it is about future skills and where we get them from. So if you just like to half close your eyes, place your feet flat on the floor, take a few nice deep breaths and come into presence with your body. And I just want you to imagine that at a safe distance that you feel comfortable with, your parents are standing behind you, your mother behind your left shoulder, and your father behind your right shoulder. This is the past that supports you, that gave you your life. And behind them, their parents, the previous generation, the past that gave your parents their life. And behind them, the great-grandparents, and on, all the way back, generations and generations of your ancestors, all the way back to the beginning of time. Each one having had the courage, the ability to survive and live well enough that you are here, present now. Feel all of that intelligence and information and love that existed so that you could be present here and now. And just feel into what it feels like to have this support in whatever shape or way it showed up to you. It was there. Just feel into that, like something that's got your back. And feeling that behind you, take your focus now towards the future. Maybe you have children. They are the future generation who will be supported by you to take all the gifts that you have given them into the future. And you look at the future world into which they are walking, and you create a rosy, perhaps, image of that in your mind and fill it with the things that you would like to see present there, not just for yourself, but also for them. What parts of yourself have you drawn from the past and you can take forward with you into the future in your personal and professional relationships, in the world that you grow and of which you are a part? What contributions can you make of your full self without judgment, just knowing that who you are and all that you have to offer is something good, great and wonderful, for which everyone else, not just those in this call today, but the wider world of our family, our community, our nation, can all benefit and out into the wider world. And feel that connection through your head and through your heart. And just drop into presence with that. And I hope today you have found value in what James and I have shared. and what all the others in this group have brought to this relationship that we formed today. And you can take that as part of your skills as a lawyer into the future. Thank you.